guys are catching the baseball better than they ever have before. And it goes all the way down to college. It goes all the way down to high school. You're seeing some really advanced catchers being developed throughout college and drafted into professionals that are light years ahead of where I was when I got drafted.
All right, you guys sat down and the sun came out. Thank you.
Sure.
Nice and warm.
I thought this would be a lot of fun. Catcher conversations, I think, are the absolute best, and I doubt you're going to disagree with me on that. But to have the two of you together, you both have been so complimentary of the other, and over the last couple of years, it's been fun to watch how you guys work together. And it's not a one-person job, I think, as Cal would attest to. It's good to have Mitch. You always mention you have Mitch. What has he meant to you, and how has he helped you on this team?
Yeah, I mean, he's been a lot of help to me, a lot of help to this team, and he's a good leader, good clubhouse guy, good player. Obviously knows what he's doing back there behind the plate, so it makes my job a lot easier. And another guy, you can go to and kind of ask questions and talk about the game and what he's seeing, what I'm seeing if it's lining up, and yeah, just kind of talking shop.
And I would imagine vice versa too with you, Mitch, looking at Cal and seeing his experience and just different eyes sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I've been a starting catcher in this league and I've been a backup catcher in this league. The former is definitely harder. I've done what Cal's done. I've never caught as many games as he has, but the way to be successful is to handle a staff and learn what you can and can't do on certain days. The way he handles our starting pitchers has been great. There's going to be days where they don't have their best stuff, and be able to get them through a game and manage the bullpen and do that 5 or 6 nights a week is impressive, and it's hard. So my job now, as I sit back and become the backup, is to really just give him a day when he needs it, try to pick up where he leaves off, and help get this staff to be the best staff in baseball.
How long did it take you to really learn this staff?
Yeah, that was an adjustment, because my first year with Seattle, I didn't catch right away. I didn't become really do any catching until halfway through. So I would say the second half of that year, I kind of caught on and learned some things. But then really at the beginning of last year, being able to take full reins of the backup position helped me out a lot. Catch these guys once or twice a week, learn their personalities, learn who they are as a pitcher and as a person, and be able to implement that into the game, and then just be complimentary to how Cal calls the game.
How long did it take to learn Cal?
Not too long. Not too long. That was the easy part, yeah?
Probably.
And not too bad.
Pretty simple.
The other way around. I mean, how long did it take to learn how to work with Mitch?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like what he said, he didn't start catching until halfway through that first season. So, but he was always there, and once a catcher, always a catcher in a way. So we see the game in a different way, and he was always there for someone to kind of like bounce ideas off of, talk about what he's seeing, and I think that's important to have, especially being a catcher. You need another person who kind of knows what's going on back there.
What would you say his strength is in breaking down a pitcher or a game, or the things that you're talking about?
I think he's really good at just keeping it simple, and kind of just he uses his eyes really well. He can kind of see the game and see the swings and kind of tell how hitters are taking a pitch, how they're swinging at a pitch, and it's really keeps it really simple, and can kind of just come up to me and just be honest and just this is what I see, this is kind of where we're at, and keeps it really simple.
Mitch, where has your biggest learning come as a catcher?
As a catcher, probably mostly from failures. Played this game for a long time, and I've screwed up a pretty good amount. It's
I guess.
It's just
we all
there's so many times when you fail throughout a season that you just like those small building blocks help you learn and get better and better throughout the years. It's things that coaches have said to you or experiences you felt, and that feeling of like really blowing a game because you made a bad call, or you threw a ball away, or you missed a block, or you just weren't locked in on a certain count, and you let something slip away from you. Things like that, and they happen over time, and it builds you up, and you become more and more confident with your skills.
I want to ask you both, if you look out there right now or if you take it a few years back, when you think of catcher, who kind of comes to your mind? If you're looking up to a catcher or across to a catcher, like this is a dude, this guy does it right, and this is a guy that has done it right for a while.
Yeah, for me, a couple names come to mind, like Buster Posey is a good one. Probably all-time, one of the best catchers in the game. I had the opportunity to play with Joe Mauer, not as a catcher, but he still had that mentality about him. He was amazing to watch play, both as a catcher and a first baseman. And then more modern, I loved watching Martin Maldonado catch. He calls a good game, handles the staff really well, and he was trusted by all of his managers. They consistently put him in the lineup because he did a good job with the staff.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Buster was really fun growing up to watch. You look at Yadier Molina, a guy who did it for so long, kind of glove first catcher. Obviously the hitting came along, but, just an all-time great. I guess those are guys that I kind of grew up watching. The young Salvador Perez, and like I said, I've mentioned to you, I grew up Red Sox fan, so Veritek was somebody that I idolized, just being a switch hitter and everything. So, but yeah, I mean, you kind of as a catcher, you follow along and see which catchers in the game you want to be like, and you try to model your game after them. And even in the minor leagues, I remember watching guys in the big leagues like JT Realmuto, guys like that, and trying to emulate what he does and trying to see if that's something I could do.
Did you have Mauer questions for Mitch?
I mean, I was kind of a kid growing up watching Joe Mauer, and obviously he was, I'm pretty sure he won MVP, right?
Oh yeah,
he won a couple, two.
We won an MVP.
One or two. I mean, catchers don't do that. Him, Buster Posey. The fact that they're doing that at that position is just ridiculous. So, when you see that from that position, you take notice, and I think everybody does. So,
it was probably before your time, but did they have the skating rinks, Mauer and Morneau and whatnot, in their yard when you were with the Twins?
No, they did not.
Have you seen that?
I haven't.
It's insane. They
No.
have obviously in Minnesota and the Canadian and Morneau, they skate and they have little pickup hockey games in their
I believe
yard.
it. Yeah.
Okay, that would have been very cool. What has been the biggest? It's when you watch catching, defensively, obviously. It seems like of all the, maybe I guess you'd have to take pitching out, but there have been so many changes quickly. If you think in terms of how old the game of catching is over the last couple of decades and even over the last 10 years. And Mitch, I'm curious, what's the biggest change that you've seen in your time?
It's the one knee down stance. It's the idea that framing has become so important to this game, and to be able to keep strikes and catch the ball the proper way. And you can go back to 2019 when it first started. That was the year where the one knee down stance really took hold of the game. And from that point on, you just don't see catchers catching that traditional stance anymore. The idea was to work smarter and not harder. But what it did actually was advance the position so far where guys are catching the baseball better than they ever have before. And it goes all the way down to college. It goes all the way down to high school. You're seeing some really advanced catchers being developed throughout college and drafted into the professionals that are light years ahead of where I was when I got drafted. This was 13, 14 years ago. Light years ahead of where I'm at. Both receiving and being able to throw the ball, and just physically, all their tools are more advanced. So catching has come a long way in a very short amount of time. And the position is just going to get better. The gap between the best and the bottom of the barrel when it comes to receiving numbers is going to just get smaller and smaller, where the skill gap is just minute.
It was pretty amazing. There was a lot of debate about that, and then it just disappeared. Everybody woke up and saw what it was, and it evolved pretty quickly. Is there anything you've noticed in your time that has been a major change? Not even a major, but just a minor, something that you don't do anymore or catchers don't do anymore?
No, I mean, kind of what he said. Back in 2019 was my first full season in the minor leagues, and that's when I started going one knee down full time. And like I said, it's kind of just the norm now. Everybody does it. So, I think, like Mitch said, the gap has just gotten smaller. Everybody's starting to do a better job of it. People are starting to, understand how important, obviously, the receiving aspect is. But you still know the guys that obviously have really good arms and can control a pitching staff and prevent 90 feet. So, those things are still really important too. They just don't happen as often in the game as receiving a pitch, because you're doing that every single time.
We had a visitor in the park recently, and they were very complimentary of, it was a former pitcher, and they said, man, if I had them behind the plate. And what really stood out to him was the targeting that you guys do. And that is something that I think is a little bit different than people imagine. That if people are watching on TV, and this is the middle of the strike zone, you guys might have your glove up here to start, and that's for the pitcher. Can you guys explain what you guys are doing with that?
I think, Mitch knows too, like each guy's different, and based on the day and how they're the ball's coming out of their hand, some days, guys need different targets and they need different setups, and, you're trying to help get the most out of them. So it's kind of day by day, guy by guy. You're trying to figure out, what they need at that time, and sometimes you got to go a little higher, sometimes you got to go a little lower, in, out. And like I said, the ultimate, goal is to get those guys throwing competitive pitches and get them over the heart of the plate. So.
And some guys want to see where the ball's going to start to break rather than where it's going to end up, it sounds like, on this staff.
Yeah, some guys do.
Yeah. But how long do you feel is the best to hold a target?
I think it's important to give them an idea of where they want the ball to start. And what we're trying to do is realize that each one of these guys is human, right? They're not going to have the same stuff every single day. It's just impossible to do. So each day they come out, how quickly can Cal and I learn, where's the miss? What's the velo look like? What are the shapes looking like? Like, how can we get them in the strike zone early in the count so that they have success so we can get off the field? So whatever that means. Does it mean holding the target longer? Does it mean holding it higher, lower, up here, down there? Whatever it might be, our job is to get off the field as quickly as possible. We want them to throw 15 pitches, and we're able to get back in the dugout and let our offense do the work. And really, at the end of the day, it's all that matters. It's not really about strikeouts. It's not about velocity or whatever it may be. It's like, how quickly can we get back off the field and save our arms for the next day?
Mound visits. How much is substance? How much of it is take a breath? And how much of it is, I've just got to get this guy off of this track right now?
I think it's both. Every situation's different. Sometimes you take a mound visit and bases are loaded. Sometimes you may take a mound visit and nobody's on base. So each one's different, and knowing the guy and the situation and kind of what he needs is kind of is what dictates going out to the mound does. So sometimes Woody goes out there as well, and that's part of his job, and it's our job, to try to slow the game down. Where are we at in the game? How many pitches is he at? How strong is he looking? Is he looking tired? Is he hitting his stride? So there's a lot of factors that go into that.
And for you?
Yeah, I'd say about 90% of the time I'm just going out there to tell them that I have nothing to tell them. I go out there and I say, listen, you look great. You're throwing the ball really well. I'm just going to let you catch your breath here, and I'm going to go back behind the plate. There are times where you have to go out there and you tell them a certain situation, like, hey, if we go inside here, we really want it to get inside, or if we get to 2 strikes, let's bury the breaky ball, whatever it may be. Like, really get it below the zone. And those are just super specifics, but our pitchers do a pretty good job. Most of them have an understanding of what they're trying to do.